Hello and welcome to Canon Unscripted. Hi, my name is Mason Higa, and on today's episode, we're sitting with one of our newly announced Canon Explorers of Light, Christine Ng. Christine is a New York-based cinematographer whose work spans commercial, narrative, documentary, and music videos. We get to know about her start in the industry, which seemed like she worked every job on set. But it was an incredible foundation which she built her career on to now working on major projects. You've got to stay tuned to this episode because I think for anyone just starting in the business to even a working pro, you'll learn something from the amazing wealth of knowledge that Christine shares. So stay tuned, get comfortable, and hear from Christine Ng on Canon Unscripted.
I think at that moment when they saw that film, they realized how much I really was passionate about this.
Yeah.
So then they were like, okay, you can go to film school, but you have to get into NYU. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not that smart.
Christine, thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really, I'm really excited to have you here. And because as I'm doing the research and everything to get started for the show, I was really surprised by the depth of work that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know and who've never seen some of the shows that Christine's done, I just want to say, stop the show right now, Google her name, and you'll be really quite surprised by all the work that she's been part of.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment. I'm really happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I've been really lucky. I feel like my journey to where I am now, like I really couldn't have gotten here without just people giving me a chance and then me finding my creative supporters who also help me execute the vision, you know?
Yeah. So, and again, let's really because I'm curious, start from the beginning, right? Like, where were you born, you know? And also too, what inspired you to be like a filmmaker as well too?
Totally. So I was born in Hong Kong. My parents moved to the US when I was like 2.5. So I grew up in New York mostly. But there was one year when I was 9. They had to go back to Hong Kong for like family stuff. And so they took me with them. My sister is like almost 10 years older. So she stayed here because she was in college. And they were like, okay, we'll take her and we'll put her in American school there and she'll just live in Hong Kong for a year. And that was like maybe the best year of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a single child. You know, I was an only child. I got all the attention.
Yeah.
My parents were, I was where they grew up. So they had this comfort of like showing me their favorite restaurants, places where they went as a kid. Whereas in America, they're like nervous because they didn't speak English, you know? So it just seemed like they were always so reserved in America. And then going back to like where they were from, they came out of their shell and I was able to like see that and experience that. So we lived with my grandparents like in Kowloon. And one day we walk out, it was like evening. We walk outside, we went to dinner, we come back and there's a movie set like literally outside our door. And I was like, oh my God. And the lead actor was my favorite Cantonese pop star.
Oh, yeah?
Because I used to listen to only Canto Pop. So because my sister was really into Canto Pop, so I listened to Canto Pop. And it was Aaron Kwok, who's like one of the like top pop stars in Hong Kong. And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe he's here.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are the odds? And then I was like, can I stay up? Like, can I please stay up and watch them work? And my parents were like, okay, fine. Like, you know, I was so excited. And normally, I kind of have like a loose bedtime, but they were really like, okay, you can stay up and like watch this. And then I looked around and I was like, oh my God, like, there's like 100 people here. I was like, maybe I could be one of them one day and do this job and like stay up all night and make movies.
At
like
9 years old?
Yeah, at 9.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I guess then moving forward, I love cameras. And so I guess eventually I was like, maybe I'll be a DP. But just being on set, I was like, I just want to be a part of this like team. And my parents let me stay up all night. And then, so that was incredible. So that was really the first time where I was like, oh, what's filmmaking?
Yeah.
You know, like, what is that?
So you got to see behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it just like hit you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so wild.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I mean, really, like that's so cool to be like something that like from your youth that resonated so hard with you,
Yeah.
right? So strong and intense. That,
Yeah.
like now it's like this is what's driving you forward in life.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like we all love watching TV, like my whole family. It was like, okay, we'd set up the dinner table and where would be a chair is the television. You know what I mean? Like the television is like a part of our lives. Like it's like, and even like when we were in Hong Kong, it's like same thing. It's like there's our dining table at my grandparents' house is right in front of the TV. So it was always like part of our lives, like entertainment and just like the TV's always on, kind of thing. So being able to like walk out and like it being right there, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
That is.
Yeah.
Were they there just for one night or did you go downstairs?
They were there definitely that night and like the next day. Or maybe we ran into them in the afternoon and they were setting up.
Okay.
Because I just remember like there's a photo. I don't know where the photo is. There's a photo of me and Aaron. And it's daytime.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I don't know where the photo is though.
Oh,
because that photo to
no.
me was like, we printed it because it was filmed then.
Yeah.
And like it was on my desk in Hong Kong. I'm sure I brought it back.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I don't know where it is.
Somewhere in storage.
Yeah, I know. I even remember what I wore. I wore like a red sweatshirt with a green dinosaur on it. I was 9.
Yeah,
you know what I
no,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
all good. Yeah.
And they were shooting like a car scene. Like I think he was playing a cop.
Yeah.
So he like parks his car and he like something happens in this like little area. But yeah, it was like that's really when I knew that I wanted to do film. Yeah.
See, and you're describing that photo. I mean, that goes to like who you are as a character, right? Like, I mean, I'm not as a character, but as a person, it's like as you develop these things and your interests, it's like you speak that visual language.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what would then that next step like for you as like, okay, like you were 9 years old and you wanted to be a film or be part of working on a set?
Filmmaking.
Like, was it your parents that maybe inspired you or was it like somebody else?
No,
or
my parents are like, get a real job, please. Like when I told them I wanted to go to film school, they were like, what?
Okay.
Like, no.
Yeah.
So we came back to the States and then, you in America, you like have different schools, so elementary, the middle school. So I went to a new middle school and the middle school had a media program. So in 7th grade, I took the media class where we made a documentary about the kids in the school and the fads of 7th grade, which then was like Jinko jeans and like weird goggles that everyone wore as sunglasses. I don't know. So we made a documentary where we like interviewed the kids and like, saw the fads in the school. And I was like, oh, I really want to be the camera person. So that's like the first time I really was like a camera person. And then we also learned like linear editing. We were shooting a VHS, so we would have to like, it was like 2 decks and a 3rd deck, and we had to like cue it up and then like record.
Yeah.
So that was where I learned like my first filmmaking class, I guess. Then in high school, I wanted to go to a small high school that had like photography or something. So they had a dark room. So I learned how to shoot film and develop like photos in high school. And then I was like really wanting to go to film school. So I wanted to go to school in LA for film school. And my parents were like, no, like you're not moving out, first of all. And you're definitely not going to film school because what is that? They're like, you should do like computer science. Like the .coms are really, like the Yahoos are the AOLs and the Yahoos are really a thing right now.
Yeah.
Or you should be a pharmacist. Like, I don't know why Asian parents always has this illusion that like, if you're a pharmacist, you're fine. You're not going to be a doctor. Like, you're not that smart, but like, you could be a pharmacist.
You could put the work in and
yeah. You could
distribute the pills.
you could like put names, count, and like make sure they match. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what a pharmacist does. I can't be a pharmacist, but that's what they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And my sister was very like she always followed the rules. We were very different.
Yeah.
So my sister did what my parents wanted her. She's not a pharmacist, but she works in banking. So like
Close enough.
She's an accountant. So close enough. It's like safe, secure. People need that person.
Absolutely.
It's like there will always be jobs for that person. Whereas like filmmaker, what even is that? That sounds like a hobby. So in high school, I applied to an NYU filmmakers workshop for high school students, and it was free.
Yeah.
And it was like I had to go in for an interview. I had to submit an application. I had to answer all these questions. It was like the first time where I had to like build a portfolio of some sort, and really it was like pre-college college application, it felt
Yeah.
like. And then they interviewed you in person. So I was super nervous that I wouldn't get it, but my friend in high school had done it. So he told me about it.
Okay.
So I think that helps when like someone knows someone. So I don't know, maybe that's how I got in, but I did that program and it was like, 8 hours every Saturday for like 8 to 10 weeks. And my parents were like, oh, wow. She's like waking up at 7:30 on a Saturday to go to this class. That's like all day. She comes home at like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
like after school. And like, she's still so dedicated. She has to do all this like extracurricular stuff outside of her schoolwork. So I think at that moment when they saw that film, they realized how much I really was passionate about this.
Yeah.
So then they were like, okay, you can go to film school,
There you go.
but you have to get into NYU.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm not that smart. I was like, I'm okay. Like my SAT score is fine. But
Yeah.
then they were like, you can only go to film school if you go to school in New York.
Yeah.
So at that time, it was like NYU or Columbia. I was like, not smart enough for Columbia. I was like, maybe I can get into NYU. So luckily, I got into NYU early decision.
Okay.
And so then I went to film school.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's
so-
no easy feat. That's no easy feat. So,
No.
and it resonated with you and your parents, again, yeah, they recognized it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So, then, and, even in film school, it's like so much of film school is what you make of it. So, like, the first 2 years, you're kind of learning the basics. And, like, your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you start making films with your friends. And that, again, just like the other workshop I did, it's like, okay, you're making films on the weekends. You're making films outside of class,
Right.
and I was just on set all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in film school, I probably worked on over 100 films, like easily.
Wow.
Because it was
Really?
just every weekend you would work on someone's film, or sometimes you'd work on 2 films over
Yeah.
the week. And, that you just end up crewing on everyone's film, and you build a sense of community. Through that
Yeah.
with all your friends. And then you're like, oh, like, so when I grow up and, maybe I could just hang out with my friends and get paid to like make movies. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's a combination, right? Again, of like learning the visual literacy of sorts, right?
For sure.
But then also too the social back end that's
totally.
not really spoken about, but
Yes.
is so intrinsic in working on a film set.
Yes.
Or being a filmmaker.
Yes, totally. It really, now that I've been working in the industry for so long, I really understand how much community matters. And that's something, to me, I just, always treated people with kindness and always wanted to help when I was younger. And so I think like a lot of people who I'm still so like really good friends with a lot of people from NYU, and a lot of them like, I guess, aren't surprised that like I've worked on this much stuff, because I've always just had the attitude of like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing on set for you. I just want to be there to help you. Because I wanted to be a DP, but I just wasn't sure if I would really get there in that atmosphere in film school. So instead I pivoted and I was like, okay, maybe I won't be a DP, but maybe I'll be the best AC. I'll be the best gaffer. I'm going to learn how to do sound. I'm going to learn all the tools that make you a well-rounded filmmaker, so that if a friend of mine ever needs help with anything, I know I can step in and help.
Yeah.
So that's often what I did. I would just like rotate what my skill set was. Like I'll like grip like in between shots, and then I'll go and hold a boom pole. You know what I mean? And like just like whatever way I can help to like get the day
Right.
and get our shots in, you
Yeah.
know? And then by senior year, I really mustered up the courage to like tell people I wanted to be a DP.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, well, you want to shoot my film? So that it's like, it's hard because you feel like, I think what's hard about becoming something that you're not quite yet is that you have to believe that you can become it in order to allow yourself to try.
Yeah.
Right?
Have
Because
that
like,
grace. right?
yeah, exactly. Whereas like I feel like I carried so much like fear when I was younger, because I was like, oh, I don't know, like, do I really know how to do that? Like, I don't know if I should do it. What if I mess it up? But then you're like, oh, you're in a learning environment. Like, this is where you're supposed to like not make mistakes, but like this is a learning environment. You're growing. And that's what you should lean into, in that time period of your life. And that's why it's important to like learn lighting and camera and sound, and like just so you can be respectful to like other people on set, and understanding what parameters they're working with and the difficulties that they're having,
Yeah, because of through experience, right? You have that safety, but also that knowledge that you can just tap into.
Exactly.
What was life like after college?
So when you graduate,
Yeah.
I don't really tell you how to get a job or like how that works. But sophomore year, a really good friend of mine, he knew he wanted to be a commercial director. So he is super proactive, and he found himself an internship at like one of the best commercial production companies in New York City. So he got an internship there, and then he was telling, us friends like all about it. And he's like, oh my God, it's so great. They buy you lunch. You like, they rep all these amazing directors. You get to work on set and shadow them and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I was like not really thinking about it. I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And then my other friend was like, oh, that sounds great. Can you get me an internship there? You know? And he's like, oh yeah, let me ask. Cause like, it's like a little, I don't know. I mean, I think he just like emailed someone. So then he like went to work the next day and was like, oh, hey, so my friend wants to intern here. Like, are you guys still interviewing people? And they're like, oh yeah, like, can they come, whatever, someday next week. Then he comes back and he's like, oh, so I got you an interview. And then she's like, oh, I'm not interested anymore. I got a better job. So I don't want it. And then he was like, oh no, like now I have to go back and be like, oh, my friend found a better job and not interested. And I was sitting there and I go, oh, I'll do the interview. I was like, I guess I could use an internship. Like not really thinking that like, that wasn't really part of my agenda, but I was just like, oh, well, now he's in a bind. I should just like do the interview and maybe I won't even get the job, but at least he doesn't have to like be embarrassed about like saying that someone got a better job or whatever. So I went in and I did the interview and I got the job. So then it was great because we interned together over the summer. And we were on set together on these huge sets. And it was just like really fun to spend time with my friend, but also like learn about commercial production and meet all these people at this company. So the internship was only for the summer. And when the summer ended, they were like, so you're starting school again. Like, what's your schedule? Do you still want to do you want a PA here? And I was like, oh yeah. So I think I had like 2 days off or something. So I would go in PA and work in the office and get like paid PA rate to like do office stuff or whatever. So I did that for 2 years until I graduated. Then when I was about to graduate, they were like, so what are your plans after college? I was like, I don't know. And they were like, do you want to work here? And I was like, oh my God, actually, yeah. So then I became their in-house production coordinator. And that was amazing. Like it was the writer's strike of like 08 or something, 07, 08. I graduated in 07. So like whatever that summer. So everyone was like worried about jobs. And I was like, oh, I'm so lucky. Like I have a job and it's with people I know and I already know this company and they make amazing work. So I worked there for 2 years after that. And I was turning 25 and I was like, oh my God, okay. I really want to be a DP. I'm surrounded by a lot of talent in that office. And I got to meet some of my heroes. And I was like, I think I just have to do it. Like if I don't, it's like the quarter life crisis, right? They're like, that's when you really like reevaluate your life. And you're like, what am I doing with myself? Like, am I meeting my goals? Am I going to achieve my dreams, right? And my dream at that point was to become a DP. So I had to quit. And I was so sad about it because I loved
the coordinator job.
Yeah, I loved my boss. I loved the people I work with. And it was so hard for me to say those words like, I'm sorry, I think I have to leave because I need to grow. And if I could stay here and work here until I retire, like I really could see myself like still being there now and just doing that, like still doing that job. Maybe I moved up and maybe I'm a producer or something, but like I totally could have stayed there and like had a great life.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I don't try now, when am I going to allow myself to do this? So I quit. And at the time when I quit, the 5D Mark II had just come out. And I was reading all about it. I was like, oh my God, this camera is amazing. It's so cinematic and it's just this little body. 1080, shallow depth of field. Like, what do you need, And I was like, okay, I got to save. I have to save money to like buy this camera.
Yeah.
So I timed it so that when I was leaving, I would have a camera package. And after my first friend worked there, then I worked there, then all our friends started working at this company. So then when I was there full time, a lot of my friends were there full time too. So my friend who I sat across like this every day, she knew everyone knew I was leaving and she knew I wanted to be a DP. So she actually went around the whole office and was like, hey, so I really think like, do you want to get a goodbye present for Christine? Like, I know she really wants this lens. I bought the 24-105 with my camera, but I really wanted the 16-35. So she was like, I think she really wants, like, I know she really wants this lens, and she's trying to like save money for it. Do you want to like contribute to like the Christine camera fund or whatever?
Oh,
So she went around the whole office. It's not a big office. It's like max 10 people.
Yeah.
And everyone, like back then, everyone had cash. They would take their wallets out and be like, oh, here.
Yeah.
And like, she raised like $2,000 and bought me the lens.
Shut up.
Isn't that crazy?
What a great friend.
She's an amazing friend.
Shout out to
Celia. She's great. And she's a director now too.
Is she?
So,
Yeah.
You know, we all had to like push ourselves into uncomfortable places to reach these goals. But yeah, like, so I'm just so thankful that like, you know, even getting the job at Park Pictures, that's the company, getting a job there was for me just to help my friend out. But like that connection led to a room full of more amazing people.
Yeah.
And that led to even more amazing things because from there, they basically hire freelancers to come in when they have a project. They start the project, then they hire freelancers to like shoot it and like, you know, execute it. So I met all these amazing producers and DPs and like just people who I loved. Like, so the company's owned by Lance Accord, who shot Being John Malkovich, Lost in Translation, Where the Wild Things Are. Just like images for me that I was like a teenager when I watched those films, and I was like, these are beautiful. Like, and then they also repped Ellen Curtis, who's a director DP, and she shot Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which for me in high school, I was like, oh my God, it's still one of my favorite films.
Like life-changing film,
Life-changing,
right?
yeah. And I was like, I think watching that film was the first time I really noticed cinematography, where I was like, wow, the camera and the way things are lit and the way the camera is moving is really making me immersed in the story even further than what Gondry was already creating. But like that was so special.
Right.
And she was there in the office. You know what I mean? So it's like, and she and I became friends. Like, and she and Lance both really just like took me under their wing and like welcomed me to their set and like let me shadow them and just like observe what they're doing and learn from them. And that's like so special because, you know, set is, you don't just open the doors to anyone. It's like a pretty like, you know, there's not a lot of
closed,
space to have visitors, right? So they always invited me and they always like let me ask questions and always like they kept putting a camera in my hands too. Like that's the thing is that like these people, not only did they welcome me in their space, but they also like put a camera in my hands. They're like, oh, go shoot this thing, you know, like go do this. And and with now having the 5D, now that I've left that place, I was able to just make stuff on my own. Yeah. Like that's like the biggest thing, right? You're like, oh, well, I want to shoot. I want you to hire me as a DP. And then you'd be like, okay, do you have a reel? No. How do I know you can shoot anything? Good question. I guess I have to shoot stuff, right? Yeah. So then now that I have this tool in my, like literally in my bag, I can just go out and make anything that I wanted. And that just changed so much for me because I could practice stuff. I could like just get better at my own craft. And I always had this tool to go help anyone tell their story. Yeah. So then after that, I left and there was this whole thing of like, oh, you know, we're doing this big commercial, but we need like a kid with a 5D. Do you know a kid with a 5D that could just like get some extra stuff for us? And I was always that kid. Yeah. Like all these freelancers are like, oh, Christine's available now. Like she's freelance. Like we should call, she's the kid. So I was the kid with the 5D and I would shoot all this stuff for the agency and the clients. And either they would make it its own cut or they would integrate it into the commercial. And it was always just like, oh, like, was that okay? But I don't know. I'm just here to like shoot the thing. And that was like pre-branded content. You know, everyone's like, I'm like, what is this for? They're like, the internet. It's like, oh, okay, where is it going to be? YouTube? You know, I was like, I don't know. And then, I mean, that was like the beginning, right? And that obviously now with so many content creators, like that was literally the birth of this whole, like this, right? Like you wouldn't do this unless there was branded content or like content creation for the internet. Right.
And demand has got to be there.
Oh my gosh. Right? Yeah. But, and now I could film anything.
Right.
So it was like, oh yeah, I can like feed that pipeline as much as I wanted to. So I was able to meet and work with amazing talent because of that. And, you know, so Park represents a roster of directors. And I, of course, became friends with everyone on the roster because I was like on the phone with them or like working with them all the time when I was in the office.
Right.
And I became really good friends with this one director, Lisa Rubish, who's an amazing director. And she had this Honda campaign. She had 3 spots.
Yeah.
2 of them was shot by a really talented DP, Jim Frona. I've seen their collaboration. It's always like a really great, like it's always a beautiful spot. So then they're like, oh, let's ask Christine to come in and shoot this 3rd spot. It's this like road trip thing. It's a bunch of stills. It'll probably be on YouTube. Like, let's just have Christine come and do it. So we spend I think 3 or 4 days on the road, shooting a road trip spot centered about these 2 girls riding in their Honda CRV. And I shot it with my 5D. So all the stills I shot on the 5D, there's like a little video component in the beginning. And at the end, shot that on the 5D also, you know, and it was like the most versatile tool. It was just me with the director, an art director, producer, and some PAs in a van.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, you know, they went from like 100-person crew to like a people in a minivan. You know what I mean? And we shot the spot.
It was a fun commercial.
It is like
like
even
the mixed
now,
media because you got the stills and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Changing of the shirts and the
Exactly.
locations. You guys had a great story to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a great story. It looked great. It was fun. It was like, and you stayed with it. Like, it's not like you turn it off. You wanted to see their journey,
Right.
you know? So so that was my first commercial, actually, you know? I mean, that's crazy, but that's like opportunity, right?
Right.
That's like Lisa giving me an opportunity, the people at Park being like, yes, call Christine. And I just like, every time I think about like how I got these opportunities, it's
Right.
because everyone just gave me a chance, you know? And then I know I lived up to the challenge. And
I was
did
just
the
going to
thing,
say,
yes,
I mean,
but
it's also your energy, it's your skill set.
yeah, but
you
if
know?
they don't give you the opportunity, you
Right.
can never showcase your potential talent.
Yeah.
You know, and they always believed in me. And so from working there, I met all these freelancers, and one of them was like, oh, she worked mostly in commercials. She's like, I'm going to produce a feature film, like a narrative one. And I know you're freelancing now and I want you to work on it. And I go, okay. And she's like, cause I was also ACing and doing other, like crew things. And so she's like, maybe you can AC on it. And I was like, okay, great. So she's like, you know, like Chris Doyle might shoot it. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I'm from Hong Kong. Like, that's huge. I was like, that's amazing. Like, I grew up watching like Wong Kar-wai films. I was like, that's amazing. And then she's like, yeah, he's signed on. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm so excited. We're going to shoot in Sri Lanka. I was like, okay, that's crazy. I was like, this is fake. I was like, you're totally like, this is a joke. And I was like, okay, well, get back to me when you're actually going to do it. And if I'm around, I'd love to join your team. So a few months later, she calls, she goes, hey, so it's still on. We got this other DP. He's amazing. I think you guys will really vibe. His name's Bradford Young. And I'm like, we're on the phone. I'm like Googling. And I look at his website. I'm like, oh, it's actually, okay, it's pretty good. Yeah. And then she's like, yeah, he's like a Sundance darling. He's had like so many films at Sundance at that point. And I go, it's like, okay. So I went to Sri Lanka, did this film with him. I was the focus puller. He was operating. And he is like the true master of handheld. And I love pulling focus because it's like intuition, but it's also like this connection you have with your DP where it's like, I know where they're heading to because I understand what story they're trying to tell visually. So we totally had that connection and like barely talked about the shots before we like went and did them, you know? And I wasn't someone to like get marks. I was just like, I could pull just on the fly.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I think now as a DP, I'm like, oh, that's such a important skill set. Cause like if we have to stop and you pull out the tape measure every time, it's like, you kind of just want to go and like flow and just like get into it. So we totally connected. So the first 2 weeks, it was just great. He was operating, I was pulling, and we were having a good time. And then one day I'm standing next to him and he goes, so like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, well, you know, I want to be a DP. And he goes, well, why aren't you shooting? And I was like, well, they don't just give you jobs, you know? Because, and you know, Bradford, like I was like, Brad, you know how it is. Like, it's not an easy world for us, like as POCs in this this industry. And he was like, well, we had a backup camera because we were shooting with the Red Epic and it had just come out. So like we were in Sri Lanka. So you should bring a backup body just because, you know, you're in the jungles, you're on the beach, you don't know what.
You can't just go to a camera store and pick up another camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't just like have something sent over and it arrived the next day either, right?
Yeah.
Like we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So we brought a backup camera and he's like, go get the backup camera. You're now my B-cam op. And I was like, oh my God, really? Wow. And he was like, yeah. So then the rest of the camera team also like bumped up. My second became the first, and we had 2 camera PAs, so they became the other first, and then one became the second AC. So we all just like bumped up together.
Yeah.
And Brad just really trusted me to like find frames. And it was, you know, sometimes you work with DPs and they're like, okay, this is the lens and you're shooting it right here and you're doing this. And he was always just like, just do something that I'm not doing. You know, like, you know what I'm going to do because like I saw what he was doing. And he's like, just go and find something else that will complement this same way. And at that point I had seen every shot we've done for 2 weeks, right? So I knew I was like I just was on the same train, like same sensibility. And so that was a 8-week shoot, I think. And so the rest of the 6 weeks I was operating. And then the last week he was like, okay, you can be A-cam now. And he let me do like a few handheld shots. I was like, oh my God. Whoa. So that was amazing. Yeah. And then I come back. That was like 2012, I think. 2011 or 2012.
So
I
this
come
is
back.
when,
2011 maybe.
How long after school then now?
4 years?
4 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
2011.
Yeah.
It was either 2011 or 2012. I think it was 2011. I came back and Lance is doing a commercial, you know, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a commercial in New York. He lives in LA. I need someone to run like a bike unit for this clothing brand commercial. and then I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, so I'm like, yeah, I'm down. I want to do it. I'm shooting it with a 5D and we're ringing it to bikes and like doing like a helmet cam and doing like stuff on the handlebars and like on the back of the bike. And they're like, but you have to join the union. And I was like, how do I do that? You know? Yeah. So then they helped me join the union. So then I joined the union then. And it was just like, you know, my first year of freelancing, just like I got all these opportunities from like just community and the people that I've kind of grown up with now. Yeah. Whenever I go back to park, which is often, you know, like they're just my friends and they feel like family, you know, and they just feel like it's like that's where I grew up, which is just like a crazy thing to say. And through that experience, you know, then Brad, this maybe like a year later, he's now moved out of New York and he calls me and he's like, hey, I'm going to be in town. What are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm around. Like, he's like, you want to come swing by set and say hi? I was like, yeah, sure. So I go to set and it's clearly a 2-camera interview, you know, and there's one of him. It's him and the AC. And I was like, do you want me to like operate that camera? And he's like, oh yeah, if you don't mind. I was like, oh, sure. So I go and I operate this camera and then it was just an interview. So like, you know, 2 or 3 hours later we were done and we're standing outside and he's like, so what do you think of the team? And what do you think of the project? I was like, oh, this project is amazing. It's about Nora Ephron. And, you know, we're kind of like meeting all the people that have worked with her in her life and her family members. And we're learning about the life of this like titan, really
amazing person,
this incredible person. And one of the directors was her son, who led these really very emotional interviews with everyone on screen. And it was just like an amazing special thing to be a part of, you know, like, you know, the final film is like an hour and a half or something, but you know, I was there for a bulk of the interviews where I got to hear everything. And that's like incredible to be in the room to like share and hear those stories. So then Brad was like, well, do you think you can like cover me? Cause like I have to go shoot this film. I was like, oh my God, like cool. Like, congratulations. And then he was like, yeah, so you'd be down. I was like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like like he's like passing the torch a little bit and like, it's big shoes to fill. Like he's very talented and the story matter is obviously important. It was HBO docs, you know, like I feel like documentaries and films weren't just like coming out every other day like they do now. It was like a very special thing to like have a documentary and the access, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, it's literally the family. Right. And just having HBO docs like fund this and back it and you know it's going to premiere and end up on HBO. Like that's huge. Right. That's just like a huge thing. And he trusted me to do that. so then, I end up working on that for like 2-3 years, as all documentaries take.
Yeah.
They invite me to the premiere, and I go to the premiere, and like in documentary, a lot of times the main cinematographer can't shoot everything, so there's a lot of additional photography, and I know like Rachel Morrison like shot some of it, like Joe Anderson, like these really talented DPs, and I obviously know I shot some of it, and I go to the premiere, and Brad gave me a co-DP credit, like right
under his name,
right under his name.
Yeah.
And that is just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, I was not expecting that, I was just like, I show up when they call me, and I'm here to do the job the best I can, and that's all that mattered to me, was
Yeah.
like those days, right? And being invited to the premiere like is also a very special thing. So I was excited about that, and then to see it on my, like, see my name up there with him, like, that is just, I mean, it's so kind of him to share that with me, because so many other people also worked on it.
Yeah.
But also I know the producers also really was, I'm sure was like, oh yeah, like, this is a great idea. You know what I mean? Like, supported that. And a lot of times I think in this industry, we're all so worried about ourselves and thinking about our own credit and our own whatever, that we don't really think about the team and the people that helped get it there. And so from like meeting and working with Brad and now he's like such a good friend of mine, it's like I've learned so much from him, and so much about like, it's not just the work, it's not about the paycheck, it's not about those things, it's about like how we treat each other and how we value each other, and understand that like the people who are working with you, like PAs and second ACs and operators or whatever, that might not be their end goal. And so like, as someone who's their leader in this way, how can I help foster a relationship where they can learn something from me and they can grow in their own way, and I think a lot of times people are just like, oh, well, you're the PA today, so like, go get me coffee or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely that kind of like hierarchy.
Yeah.
And yes, like there's still the hierarchy, but like it could still be like kinder, it can still be a kinder place.
Oh, absolutely.
So I learned all of that from him, and just like relationships and like, that producer that I met at Park, I've worked with her so many times now, like she brought me to Sri Lanka, and then she's done, that's not her first feature anymore, like she's now since like done so many other projects, and like you all kind of grow together.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in this industry, when you feel alone, you are alone, but at the same time, all your peers are also like, their careers are rising. They're getting more credits under their belt. They're building their portfolio. And like, over time, we take each other to the next level.
Right.
It's like we're all climbing this like crazy ladder. And like, as we look in the distance, your friends are in the same place.
You're all trying to ride that tide.
Yeah.
Right?
And we take each other with us.
Right.
That's the thing, is that so many of my friends from college, like we still work together, and we support each other, and we can like ask each other like, questions that we'd be too afraid to ask, you know what I mean? Other people. And like, we foster this community where it's like, there's always something to learn.
Right.
And I don't always know the answer, and I,
no one does though,
yeah,
at that point,
but some people think they do,
Yeah. Some do.
yeah.
Oh, I just want to recognize as well too, that movie, the documentary was Everything Is Copy.
Yes. Everything is copy.
Yeah. Because I watched it. I loved that documentary. I got 7 minutes to the end. I was bawling. I was crying. I was like, it hits.
It's
really does.
Intense.
Yeah. It's a great documentary.
Yeah. And for
really
Jacob to kind of go through that for X amount of years. I mean, obviously with dealing with his mother's death, but also like then the aftermath of like making this film.
Right.
Every day it's like kind of retelling story, reliving that moment. And I mean, that's
it's a process.
hard.
It's a tough process.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because you think you're getting closure, and again, it's extended for so long. And to tap in and hear those stories from all those people.
Oh my God, totally. Yeah. You just have to be so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And really commit to that, right? Like, because if he wasn't so vulnerable, the other person wouldn't be it. It's like this. It's the energy on screen, and like, you have to foster that. And so that's why it was such an honor to be like the person lensing it, like they trusted me to like lens it for them. And I'm like, oh wow, that's like what an honor.
That's really cool.
No, it's
there's
cool.
there's no other way to really describe it.
No,
it
is really cool. I mean,
cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, wow.
It's insane.
Oh man, that's so cool. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting, right? Because you touched upon like coming into a new group or things like that, right? And some of your history as well too is coming on to other projects that are already like, hey, you're coming into this episode or that episode.
Yeah.
So how do you as a DP now come into that group? Like tell us, for those of us that never experienced that, like how do you work with that group now? Everybody's new for you.
Totally. So since then, fast forward, I've shot a bunch of documentaries, a bunch of commercials, a bunch of started working a lot in narrative TV. First as an operator, and then with Brad, I was able to then do some second unit for him on When They See Us with Ava DuVernay, and that was like an amazing experience. So I feel like from even when I was a focus puller, like I was saying earlier, there's this like energy and this kind of like style that you internalize once you realize what the visuals language is of each project. So when I operate, sometimes again, it's like there's a DP and director might be very specific about their needs and exactly like the measurement to where they want the lens and all that stuff. Then some are very like vibe it out, like, oh, just like do something, just give me something that fits within this world. And on When They See Us, it was a lot of like me pitching ideas. And that was so exciting for me.
Yeah.
So through that, then moving on to kind of becoming a rotating DP on things like Rap Shit and Poker Face, there was already a bit of a style created, and then I'm coming in to kind of like carry the torch to the next episode and to make sure the visual language is still the same and consistent.
Yeah.
So that you don't watch it and it feels like a completely different show. So within that, it's a lot of observing and really, but also observing in a way that internalizes what others are doing, but being able to also be like, okay, this is my episode. This thing happens in the episode. It's a different thing. And a lot of that is really just like communication. You're like, hey, so in my episode, this happens. Is it okay if I do this? And people are usually like, oh my God, yes. Like, what a great idea, So I think it's about communication.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand why someone else is doing something, you should be like, hey, like, do you always do that because of this? Or is it just this one-time thing? And asking those kind of like what seem like silly questions, like, oh, should I even ask? You should ask,
Yeah.
And the beauty of Poker Face especially, though, is that, we're using the same cameras. We have the same crew. That's the other thing, is that the DP and director is kind of on a rotating basis. But the shooting crew, the technical team, they're consistent. So we just pass them back and forth,
Okay.
Between episodes. So like when you're shooting, I'll be prepping. Then when you're done shooting, it's my first shoot day. Then you're prepping.
Because how long are all of these?
So Poker Face, they started, I think, in April. Yeah. My first day was like end of April because they already shot some stuff and prepped. And then I came at the end when they were still shooting episode 1 with Ryan and Steve. So then I started prepping. When I started prepping, then the other DP, Jaren, started shooting. So then our last day, I feel like, was like end of September.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 5 to 6 months, depending on the length of the show. I mean, and every show is different. Like Poker Face was a 2-week prep, 2-week shoot. So that's 10 and 10 days and 10 days. Rap Shit was like, it kind of varied a little bit, but on average, it was like a 5-day prep, 5-day shoot.
Yeah.
So it's all different. And then when I shot Z-Way, which I was the only DP on, and that was fun because it was a brand new show with no real anything, no like, we've done this in the past, that was a really fun show to kind of like create and develop the style of what the Z-Way brand is. And that one was so fast. I think we had like 3 weeks of prep and 3-week shoot. for a thing that was 6 episodes.
Yeah. That's
with,
not a lot of
like-
time.
No.
You guys
With,
were
like-
doing like what, 20-hour days?
No.
know.
We were
Okay.
12s.
Okay,
like
12s, okay.
yeah.
All right.
No, we on Z-Way, we never
Yeah.
really went over. There were
Okay.
even some days that were half days because of how like the talent situation worked or something. Or if it was like a documentary thing, it became like half days or 8 hours or something. So
All right.
but that one was different because it was like 5 to 6 segments an episode, and it was a 6-episode season. So we were averaging like 30 to 36 segments that we had to shoot over the course of 13 to 14 days. And it was because it was such like we were always trying to get, really high profile guests. It was always kind of last minute.
Yeah.
So we'd always just like, we were going to do this. Oh, but this person's available. We're bumping this up, and that process was an incredibly great learning process because it was so fast. And I mean, in that case, I was really the only one making those kind of like the decisions from the visual aspect with the production designer. But it was so fast that it was like I got really good at working with ADs and like helping troubleshoot like schedules and how can we squeeze things?
Yeah.
How can we prep things quickly so that this is ready in case we ever have to come to this like tomorrow, even though it was scheduled for Friday, I'll have it ready just in case.
Yeah.
So that helped me with like bigger shows now with Poker Face and being like, oh, we lost this location. We got to bump this scene up. Okay, no problem. You know what I mean? Whereas like, I think if you didn't have, for me, if I didn't have that Z-Way training or like my documentary training of just like things changing all the time,
Adapt and move forward, right?
Exactly. You just kind of be like, okay, copy. So what can we do, and just move forward. Because like you can sit there and be like, oh no, like this is messed up.
It's starting to rain.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So what do you do? Okay,
Yeah.
can we move inside? Is there a scene we can do inside? And you just always have to kind of think on the fly and be really adaptable to the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the process of then like breaking down those scenes and stuff? Like because you did mention you're working with a production designer and your
Yeah.
producers and everything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Again, just for those of us like who've never worked on
Totally.
scenes like an environment like that. Like,
Totally.
How do you guys manage all of this?
Yes. So every job is so different.
Yeah.
Like the kind of working styles and the schedule. Like the schedule really dictates a lot of how a lot of this falls. But in an ideal scenario, the production designer starts before me because they have to build sets. They have to start pitching ideas. They need to like kind of get all that ready so that by the time I start, there's already kind of a foundation of like, this is the location or like, this is what we're thinking. And they work, production designers have a really hard job because they're just kind of like, they're balancing the whole show,
Yeah.
and things like when there's a curveball and things need to change and we have to bump up a set, it's really a lot of pressure on them to have that ready, but they always pull through.
Yeah.
It's hard, but they always pull through. And for me, by the time I get started, it's a lot of like, if we're using existing sets, like locations rather, if we're doing on location stuff, I try to ask for photos early on, even if I haven't started yet, just to like know what we're getting into. And then like just pointing things out like, oh, if there's a window, can we make sure there are shears and things to like just for sun protection or, things like that. Or if we're building sets, I try to ask them to give me like overhead, like layouts of, like floor plans
Floor plans,
of
diagrams.
the sets. And then when they get a little closer, I'll start asking like, okay, how big is this window? Because, in television, you really have to move quickly.
Yeah.
And for me, moving quickly, a lot of it is like trying to build the lighting into the environment, or pushing things through windows or having lamps or, kind of doing things from an architectural standpoint so that it's just integrated into the world to move quickly. Then I'm just moving the cameras inside and maybe a light or two inside that's like helping the ambient or giving a key or something. So I always, once I get a script, I break it down for myself, just like general, like, okay, how many locations are there? Like, oh, maybe this could be a really cool camera move here or like, just like ideas. Then I start prep with my director, and immediately I meet them and I'm like, okay, hey, so nice to meet you. Do you want to meet up this afternoon and like start shot listing?
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like I want to get in their head and understand what's important to them, you know, and start just writing down all our ideas. And we can really, at that point, we're not tied to any parameters. So we can really just like riff and like share and like, you know, build on each other. And just like brainstorm, you know? So I'll write all the stuff down, and within this document, I also write like if there's a specialty lens or a specialty camera move or lighting effect or something I need from art department or props or special effects or visual effects or whatever. I start writing all of this down, and I share it with the team. So I share it with the production designer, I share it with the AD, I share it with like anyone who wants to look at it. I start talking to costumes. If there's like something that I'm like, oh, you know, this is going to be blue screen, so don't put them in blue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like things like that where it's like, okay, I can kind of get ahead of this. I just start laying the groundwork. I ask for a crew list. I start emailing people before I start and just introducing myself and making sure they have my contact info, because I find that in previous jobs and when I wasn't a DP, I felt like communication didn't flow very well. So now I'm just like an open book. I'm like, if you want to know exactly what I'm thinking for a scene, here's the link to my shot list. It's live, it's active. So you can see it change. You'll see exactly what I'm thinking for scene 1 and scene 50 or whatever. It's always there for you. I share that with my camera department. I share that with my operator so that he or she might know like, oh, it's Steadicam, then it's dolly, then we're on a jib. Oh, then we're handheld, you know, and it's like, it makes their planning so much easier.
Right.
And then you end up on set. I send that document every night, the night before for the next day. And it's in order of how I want to shoot it.
How you broke it down.
How I broke it down. So then they'll look at that and come in the morning and already know like what
to prep.
what
4
to
steps
prep
ahead
for.
of time. Right.
Yeah, like, oh, we're using a 50 handheld. Oh,
Right.
great. You know, so it's already ready. Then they'll have the Steadicam standing by because that's the next thing up.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to walk around chasing everyone down and being like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, you know, and everyone just knows.
Yeah.
And it just makes it clear. So my prepping style is like very like, I think prep is so important. And communication, and also just like free-flowing ideas. And then when we start getting boxed into resources and timing and all these things, then it's the game of like working this puzzle, you know? But I love problem solving, and I love like problem solving with the team, and you know, sometimes they're like, oh, like that meme of that dog sitting and everything's on fire and you're like, this is fine, you know? Like for me, I'm like, oh, I smell smoke over there. Let's start putting that out before it becomes a fire. Like that's my mentality, is like, why are we sitting in a fire? We didn't, you know, it's like not addressing issues leads to fires.
Right.
So why don't we just talk about it and be like, we can't punt all these things to this day because this day is impossible.
Right.
You know, like how are we going to get overtime? If we can't, we're going to have to lose shots. Fine. But like before we do that, do we really exhaust all the other ways to fit it in? Can I, if I hire another grip to prep these rigs, can I have that standing by, and in between these two scenes, can I pop the camera on and go get that shot?
Right.
And that's how I'll get that scene, or we'll never get that scene. You know, so like this kind of like problem solving, but also like talking to the team, talking to the grip, be like, hey, if I give you this thing to rig it the day before, can you have it ready for me first thing in the morning? You know? And they'll be like, yes, you know, but a lot of times it's like, you can't just walk up and be like, rig this car, I got to shoot in an hour. Like that's not realistic. So it's like all the ideas that you have for the full show needs to be on paper, so that we can then like move all the pieces around and everyone knows what all the pieces are and what that means from a lighting point of view, from a grip point of view, camera point of view, production design point of view. Everyone just knows what is needed and if it's possible to execute that.
Yeah, it's
like
almost like being an engineer. You know, I mean,
kind of.
It's
I don't know.
It's like a social engineer of sorts.
Kind of, yeah,
you know?
actually, yes.
Yeah.
And then and then obviously the personalities with that. Like this is just like on paper what people's roles are, but also the personality of making sure that people feel like they're engaged and in part of the process. And you know, even with the shot list, like some directors are like, oh no, like your shot listing, you're putting it on paper. Are you going to lock me into this? Does that mean we come in here, we have to do this coverage this way. And I go, no. I was like, we have this on paper so that I know what's important to you. Like, we just went through this whole thing. You're like, oh man, this close up, if we don't have this close up, we won't, like the close up of like poker face, like a close up of like a quarter.
Yeah.
The close up, you know what I mean? The
To do the
quarter,
scratch
like, the
off.
scratch off.
Right.
You're like, why is the quarter here? You
Yeah.
know, like these little close ups
Right.
make the film.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, punt it. We can't get the close up. It's like, no, you need the close up or the story makes no sense, you know?
Right.
So like the shot list process for me is like understanding, like, I read the script, but beyond that, it's like, okay, now it's like broken down in like a shot, like a visual shot listing way, to know that we're actually getting all the pieces to tell the story. If you don't get a piece on camera, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
If it didn't happen, then the viewers are like, how did this happen?
Right.
You know, so the shot list is just so I can understand what is important in the story and what's important in the scene, but then being able to then say, okay, we're in here, we have 15 minutes to shoot the scene. What can we make this a oneer of some sort, and then the insert?
Yeah.
Maybe we get 3 takes of the oneer and the insert, and then you got the scene. Or, you know, like then you can kind of just you can throw all that away and pivot. But the team coming from the crew side, if I get a shot list, I know there's a plan. And when I know there's a plan, I feel good about the day. If I walk in and it's like, I know we have to shoot 12 pages, and you read it and it sounds, you're reading the script and it's like crazy, you're like, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And then you're just not like excited about the day because you're like, oh my God, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah.
But if they come in, they read the sides, and then they look at the shot list and they're like, oh, like we have 20 shots. That's a lot of shots, but it corresponds with what we're trying to
There's
do.
a plan. We got
and there's
it.
a plan. Oh, A camera,
Yeah.
then B camera's prepping. Then we go to B, then we go back to A, and there's a flow.
Yeah.
And when people know the plan, people are down.
Right.
And
They're
you
excited.
also, you also involve them in the plan. You go, is this possible?
Right.
I'm going to send you to do this. How long will that take you? Should I send you earlier? Then they feel like ownership and they are part of the plan.
Right.
They're not just like here to execute the plan, but they're like helping to like, they've created the plan too, you know? And I think when you can get people on board that way, creatively too, same thing, everyone gets excited and everyone is like excited to do the work, and it's not just like a clock in, clock out situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and again, because you need that creativity, right? You know, so it's
Exactly.
just like you can't stifle it with frustration.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so much of that frustration is those are just roadblocks. Then,
Totally.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's like you got to pivot away
Yeah.
from all of that.
Yeah. Like you need you need to give them motivation too.
You know, so let's go to like a little technical, right?
Yeah.
Because you were talking about setting up and things
Yeah.
like that, and again for the creativity of it
Uh-huh.
as well. Like what are like the focal lengths? You know, like you know
Oh.
that you like to play around with.
That's a good question. I feel like it's so specific to the story, right? Like I think there's some stories you're trying to tell where a close up on a super wide lens is the vibe. It's not very flattering, but it's like, you know, unsettling, and maybe that's the energy, or it's like a beauty spot, and you're like, oh, you know, if we're gonna close up, the widest we should go is a 35. You know what I mean? So it kind of depends on like the vibe of the story.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely someone who like close focus is so important to me. I want to get in there.
Yeah.
You know, so whenever I look at I don't have it on my phone, but whenever I shoot anything, I have my ACs make a chart for me that's like lens, f-stop, and close focus, and then my filters. So whenever I'm walking around, I'm just looking at that and being like, okay, so maybe I can do this on the 35 because the close focus is better, because I really want to feel like right here with someone, you know? Like the last feature I just shot, the 35 was like the lens.
Yeah.
It was always like, what should we, the 35, you know? Because that one, the 35 is versatile enough where you can move back and get something wide and hold a head to toe if you need to.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, there's like 5 people in the shot or whatever. You can hold that. But then you could also walk up to someone and have a really nice like portrait of them, you know? So the 35 to me is like maybe the most versatile
Yeah.
in that. But I also like a 40. Also, if there's like a 50 macro, that's like the jam right there. So I would say 35, 40,
Yeah.
50.
Yeah, because I was looking at your website and like some of the like the beauty spots that you
Yeah.
that you had, and I was like, watching them, I was like, these are fun. They're really intimate and yet kind of jarring at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
I was
because
like,
I feel like a wide close up, you get
Yeah.
the environment.
yeah,
You know, like you get like the setting of where you are. Whereas like if you're on like 100 mil over there, it's really just this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I personally really like to be wide and close.
close, right?
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like the high low of it also adds to like the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. That's why I was like watching. I was like, whoa, like because I'm not seeing that compression, you know, and so it's
Exactly.
like I'm seeing that real
Exactly.
intimacy of it.
Yeah,
And it was fun.
that's a good point. I don't really love long lenses because
Yeah.
it feels like a creeper,
Okay.
like a like a stalker camera.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't love long lenses unless I'm like I can't reach something, you know? Or if I want to get a lot of foreground. Or like one thing I do like to do is like use a long lens but do a wide shot. You know, so that you can get the layers of this tableau.
Yeah.
But also still get the wide shot and have more like textural quality to it.
Yeah.
But rarely using a long lens to do a close up.
Okay.
Unless I'm just trying to like sneak B cam in to like get coverage, you know, then I'll do it. But if it's like single camera, that's not my approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how often do you get to like play an experiment then?
Often.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I think like, you know, we shot list with a plan.
Yeah.
Then the actors come in and I want, right, like I'm shot listing without the actors in mind in terms of like, I don't know where they're at with the story. I don't know how they're carrying their intention when they come in the space. So they might come in the space and, you know, again, the production designer is going to bring it to life. So they come in and if they're super method, they might fall into some character trait or something that maybe they're also an unsettled person. They have to like, they're anxious, they're pacing the room. I didn't see that. I thought they were going to sit and just be like nervous in a corner. So that changes the energy and the shot.
Yeah.
But I always want to allow the actors to bring their part of it. They bring it to life, you know? I'm making all these kind of educated decisions based on photos and like schematics and like just like reading the script, but not like having a person actually walk through and interacting with the space. So I really, during the private rehearsal with the actor and the director, director, I want to give them the rein to kind of like move in the space.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yes, I might be like, okay, you can't really go beyond here because they have to stay in this window light or something. So sometimes I set parameters, but for the most part, I want it to feel like I haven't locked them into something so that they can let the actors really lean in and show us what they feel in this space. And then obviously that will change the shot list and the whole like approach, but that's okay. So that's when we play, you know? So it's like, you have to do so much work in the beginning, just like get it out of your system so that now when we walk in a space, it's, you know what it is, you know, like when I first read the script, I can't remember what scene 5 is versus scene 15, you know, then after I've done my shot listing and someone will mention something like that's scene 13A, you know, and they're like, oh, wow. But it's because I've now internalized it in such a way that it's in my head. And that means that when we're on set, I have now internalized it in a way where we can break the mold, you know, like we don't have to follow this like.
Now you're doing jazz and in a sense, right? You guys are dancing.
Exactly.
And,
But you have to do like, we all have to understand the choreo and the intention and know the music before we can like just freestyle.
That's fun.
Yeah, no, it is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you stay organized then on a set? I mean, like, for example, like what
I have
tools?
an iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an iPad.
Yeah.
It's funny, my friend texted me yesterday. She's like, what apps do you use? Like, how do you put all your notes together? So there are a lot of things. So like Artemis is like a great viewfinder app. So like if there's time on set, and which I did for this feature, which was amazing, we took a shot for every single shot that we had on the shot list. So I put that in the shot list. So now you see the frame. And it's general. It's like it might move a little bit, but it's like, okay, it's a 35 here ish. And then I'll have a lighting or G&E column where it says like jib or whatever we're using, and then camera will say like lens or any specific filters or settings or shooting style. And then lighting, I will say like what units where in relation to the person. And then sometimes on my iPad, on another app, I'll draw the lighting diagram. So I'll send that with the shot list. Then I have this other app called Scriptation where you can like write all over the script. So I have that. I have my shot list, which is really, the shot list is like my Bible. It's like that's where everything is. Even though it's like a spreadsheet, that's like how my mind is organized, I guess. Yeah, it's a spreadsheet.
Oh.
And that's what I send.
Yeah.
So I walk around with that, and that's really the main tool I have.
Yeah.
And I make that in like it's just a spreadsheet. So any like spreadsheet app.
Yeah.
Then I usually have sides in my pocket from the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will also make a lookbook for the job. So then when we get to a scene and I'm with my DIT and my G&E, I'll be like, this is like our reference.
Yeah. Pretty simple. I mean, straightforward in that sense, but
Yeah.
like you try not to overcomplicate it then, right?
Exactly. Because then it becomes like, I mean, when I didn't have an iPad, it was just like so many papers and like a binder and then like all these notes, and you're like, how do I keep it together? You know? And now that it's all digitized, at least it's like I can just like airdrop it to someone. You know what I mean? Like I do that. Like there was one day where it was raining, so we had to pivot and shoot something else. So I already had that shot list like on a PDF. So I just screenshot it and I just airdropped it to everyone on set so that now they know, oh, we're moving to scene 14. We have a plan, you know, and it's not just like, oh, what are we doing now?
Again, staying organized, make it seamless, you know, in that sense, right?
Totally.
So what other ways then are you encouraging the whole like set and your team, you know, like, because again, I mean, you do have to work with a larger group of people. Like you got to work with everybody, right? But then you also have like your core, right? So how do you encourage like the energy, you know, like when you get onto the set as well too?
So I've sent them the shot list before. I've also talked to each of them, specifically about like the general vibe of the show. Okay. Or like the episode or whatever we're doing. Like if there's something special, I've already talked to them about it for a few days. So it's always like it's not like I come in and I'm like, okay, like go time. But we've been building up to something where it's like all this prep we've all been doing, it's paying off now. So I think everyone comes in with a little bit of excitement when you involve them from the beginning versus like coming in and being like, if it's your first day, you're going to hold a little anxiety, right? But if you haven't interacted with anyone in the team yet and your own departments, that will cause even more anxiety. So now I've already like, I've seen everyone once or twice, at least in person, and talked to them on the phone a few times. So like there's a rapport, you know, and hopefully the crew also knows each other. So that always creates a sense of camaraderie. And like, you know, we all love working with our friends. So like, I always try to, if someone doesn't know someone, I try to introduce them early so they know each other, you know, and I just try to create a sense of bond. Because we're going to be together for a while, you know, so you want to make sure that everyone knows each other and everyone can talk to each other and everyone's communicating with each other. And then on set, you know, I'm just very respectful to them. You know, at the end of each day, I walk around and I say thank you to everyone that I see. You know, I say good morning to everyone that I see. And like, and if I can, I try to do a coffee run for the team. You know what I mean? Like those things matter. Like they're little things, but they matter. Or like, you know,
is that because you started like, you know?
I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of it is like holding my own trauma, you know, being like, I felt like this person was like mean or didn't care or like, I go to set and I don't know what's going on. And if I had known something, I would have been better prepared for them. Yeah. And so now I just like over communicate. Like I send emails like right when I hire someone, okay, here's all my prep. Look at it at your discretion. You're not technically on yet, so you don't have to look at it. But if you're curious, it's here for you.
They are. And they are.
Yeah, and they are. And people are, you know, and people want to know that like their leader is not leading them to like a bad path. You know, like I always just felt like I wish I knew more. And so now I just share a lot. And I think sharing is huge, and checking in. And if I sense frustration, I'll go over and be like, hey, is everything okay? Like, are you, what's going on? We can talk about it, And I always tell people, like, if you need a day off for something personal, whatever, like, just tell me.
Yeah.
Because we all have so much family stuff going on and life stuff, and like, people are like, you should leave that at home. And I'm like, but that's not real. Like, people are people, and you're going to be like dealing with things all the time. And when we work these crazy hours, and we work together for a long time. So it's like, if you need a day off to deal with something, like, that's okay. Like, just tell me.
Yeah.
We can work it out, so those kind of things. Or like, hey, like, I want to do the shot. This is how I think we should do it, but you might know a better tool. So what do you think? And then they'll say their thing. And I'm like, oh, that's a way better idea. And that involvement makes them excited. And then if I do that every day, every other shot, then it's really like, we're doing this together, and that keeps everyone engaged.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I want to do the shot. Wait, do you think there's a better shot? And just being able to have that kind of openness with my whole team.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, a PA could say something great, and I'd be like, oh my God, we should totally do that,
Right.
And when I'm sitting at the monitor, I'm sitting there with my DIT, and I always invite the set dresser to be near me, because like sometimes I'll be like, oh, that curtain's bothering me, and they'll run in and fix it, But like, if they're not next to me or near me, it's the game of telephone of trying to get someone to fix a curtain, It's like, it's just like,
slows everything down.
Slows everything down.
Right.
Also, like, then everyone's yelling this person's name, and I hate yelling.
Yeah.
So I also wear a headset when I work, especially on the bigger stuff, because then all day I'm just talking to my crew, and the people on the headset are my operators, my first ACs, sometimes the second AC, my key grip, my gaffer, maybe the dolly grip or jib op or whatever. So I try to have this team, my core team, on these comms with me all day, because I'll say, okay, so this is the second to last shot. So the next thing we're going to do once we leave this room is we're going to go do the car rig. So is the car rig ready? And I would have said that in the morning, like, let's prep this so that by 11 we can step outside and go do this shot.
Yeah.
So then with that, I'll be like, is the van prepped with Video Village? So like, now we can literally just walk outside and put the camera on the rig and we can go, versus sometimes, okay, we move on. We go outside. We're all walking around this car. 3 hours later, we get the shot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to wait.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm kind
Time
of
is money, and
I'm actually kind of impatient. So in order to not deal with that, I have to plan. I have to be communicative, and I have people working all the time, to like get ahead. So those are things that keep the team going. And when there's momentum, you can get through the day so fast.
Yeah.
When it pauses, and you, like, if we went outside and that wasn't ready and we had to sit, it's just going to drag out.
Yeah.
So like, I try to keep the momentum up the moment we're in.
Yeah.
We're going.
Go,
you know
go,
what I mean?
go. Sure.
And if we're waiting for something, I'm talking about 3 setups from now, so that you can go prep something and that we're not idling.
Stay busy, stay engaged.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So those things I think really help the team. And it's something that, when I was crewing, I wish I had more of.
Yeah.
Because I love to work, but I also love to go home. I love making money, but I don't love overtime enough.
Yeah.
To like want to put us through that, and
It's the added stress, too.
it's just a lot. It's a toll, like, especially as time goes on. It's just not sustainable, and like, then you start getting to like safety things. I want to make sure everyone gets home okay. I want to make sure everyone's getting rest.
Well, what was your toughest job then? And I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
my
not saying,
toughest job. I think
not because of like negativity or something like that, but it could have been
like as a DP or just in general.
Oh,
like
just in general, yeah. What was your toughest job?
I think that's a good question.
Because we were talking about I just want to see like the other side, because you're saying all this stuff, and again,
I think when you were a second AC, because I mostly did camera department stuff. When you're a second AC and you're asked to like do 18 things, and you can't because you only have 2 hands, like, and then you're doing Steadicam, then you're running in the forest, and they want you to take everything into the forest, but it's a Steadicam shot. So why am I taking the 100 mil? We're not going to use the 100 mil on the Steadicam, right? You know what I mean? And it's
all
like,
shaky and everything.
yeah. And then
right,
it's
yeah.
like, well, I guess it's not my role to say we're not taking that, right?
Mm.
You know, so like those things are hard because then
yeah.
I have to gut the whole thing and bring the tripod in there. But why am I bringing the tripod in there? You know, and you know, the higher up will be like, no, take everything. What if we need it? And you're like, okay, but like, do we really need it?
Yeah.
And then for me as a DP now, I would just be like, we're gonna do Steadicam, leave all this behind, bring a few extra batteries and media, and maybe one other lens. Put it in a bag. That's all we need.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for anything else. And I don't want you to move things 5 times. The thing I hate is when people have to move things twice.
Yeah.
I really don't like that. And then I feel bad when someone has to move something twice. So that's like my plan in life is to never have people move things more than 2 times, you know? Because then it's like, well, why didn't we just leave it there?
Right.
Why did we do like
It's this story of efficiency and communication.
efficiency and
right?
communication is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is everything. So I think seconding is hard. I think being a PA is so hard. There was this one job where I was a PA on a commercial, and we were shooting on the beach, and base camp was not on the beach; it was somewhere else, and the walkie distance didn't span that, so I had to be the PA in the middle of the woods relaying. And I don't have good walkie etiquette. Like, I don't know. Like, you hit the button, you wait. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, copy, don't copy. I don't know. Like, I'm actually the worst person to have a walkie. I don't like walkies because I just like talk. I don't like do the whole like protocol thing. That was horrible. And then I had to stay there. I was there for 6 hours until lunch. I was the last person to eat lunch. Then they were going to come back and put me there again. And I was like, can I please be on set? So they put me on set. But when I was on set, I was the last person on set. So I had to do the trash sweep on the beach in the dark. And, you know, the crew leaves trash everywhere. So now another thing I do is whenever I start a job, I talk to, like, it varies who's in charge of trash. Sometimes it's the set dressers, sometimes it's locations. And I'll be like, can you please put a trash can next to my DIT tent? Because then everyone knows next to DIT is a trash can.
Yeah.
And I don't like giving people my trash. Like, you know, like you're walking around with your food or whatever and you're done.
Yeah.
You're like, let me take that from you. I'm like, no. Like, I should throw my trash out. Like, don't do that.
See, again, it's that energy and that youthful experience that you've had, right? That younger experience that really translates to who you are now,
totally,
right?
totally.
Yeah.
I'm just like, let's just respect everyone. Everyone in the room needs to be respected, you know, because they're also a person. And I think people lose sight of that because it's so stressful. But and what I also do is like, instead of carrying all the stress myself, I give it to everyone. I'm like, hey, can you help me with this?
Yeah.
Please, like, I'm going to let you be responsible for this so I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And I trust that you will execute it. But if you can't, tell me.
Yeah.
You know, so when I do that and I just trust my team, I don't have to carry all the weight.
It's just out of mind, right? Yeah.
And then when people ask, like, okay, like, you want to do this thing, you know, production will ask, like, how much time do you need? How many grips do you need? How many whatever you need? And I'm like, that's a question for the gaffer and the key grip. You know, that's not a question for me. They know what I want, but they manage their team. I'm not the one telling them how to execute the thing once I ask them for it.
Right.
They are.
Right.
So they should be the ones making the decision of how they want to run their team. So I don't like to micromanage either. And when I do that, then the department head knows I trust them. And then you're building a bond that way.
Right.
I'll ask you for something. I know you'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, you'll tell me. And that's how I trust that you'll execute what I ask,
Right.
you know? Then whatever production needs in terms of like how many guys, how many this, and that, what kind of gear, it's very clear because they're getting it from the source, not from me who's like guessing what someone else will do. Because we all like rig things differently. We all like differently. We all like, it's just like preference, you know, like how you like to do something. So
since this is a Canon podcast, obviously we got to ask the questions, right? So what gear and what Canon gear are you using? Or what are you interested in? Like, what's been like your go-to and stuff too?
Yeah. So last time I was here, actually, I showed everyone this dream lens that I bought, you know, the Canon dream lens.
Oh yeah, you got one?
I bought one. Yeah. And I'm like, I really want to rehouse it. So I bought that, and it's just like, it's still the same mount as the Canon 7 that it only fits on right now. So I've been taking photos with that, and I'm like so excited about it. So I really want to rehouse that and have that as like part of my kit that I just have all the time, because I think the versatility of that lens and the kind of like imagery that I'm drawn to is like a soft, creamy texture, which that totally gives, and like the bokeh on that, because it's a 0.95
Yeah.
is crazy. So I'm really excited about that lens that I'm hoping to use more of. But you know, the first lens I bought, the 24-105, I still use it a lot.
Do you?
I do. When I shoot docs and I'm outside, I'm always using the 24-105.
Yeah.
And then last time, actually, I met another Canon person and they told me about the 24-70. That's a f2.
28
to 70. That's
yeah.
f2. I was like, oh my god, I need that.
Yeah.
So I haven't used I looked at it because they had it, and I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Because like sometimes you just need one extra stop, and I always found the 24-70 to be not long enough. But I'll use it because I need the 2.8, you know. So, but my favorite lens is really the 24-105. Like I think that focal length is like perfect. Is there a faster one of that?
There's a 24-105 2.8.
Oh,
We just came out with it.
well, I need my hands on that.
And there's a power zoom functionality too that's going to be built into it. It's going to be a
How?
little adapter that goes onto the
Oh,
lens.
cute.
So then when you pair it with like the C70 or the R5, C70,
Oh, then you can use the little.
it's almost like a rocker switch that's on it. So
Oh,
you'll be able to
that's
zoom in and out
cool.
with it. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I'm excited
We'll show it
about
to you.
that. Yeah,
We'll show it
yeah.
to you.
I'm excited
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Because and the compactness of those lenses
Yeah.
is what's really exciting. Because like some other zooms are just too large, you know, and knowing that I have the versatility, and it's lightweight and it's fast. That's like those are my favorite things. I also really love the 100 macro. I just really like macro things.
Yeah.
So, you know, the 100 macro. There's another macro too, right? I feel like I have the other one too. Isn't there like
There's a
50
couple of different.
There's like a 50 macro.
There is a 50
Yeah,
macro.
I think I have the 50 macro too.
It's an older lens.
It's an older lens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my stuff is like,
yeah.
maybe it qualifies as vintage now. I don't know at what point it qualifies as vintage.
Yeah.
But the 24-105 I literally have had since the first time I started shooting.
Right. That's your kit lens.
That is my lens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always like, do I need a new one? I'm like, no, this is the one. Like
Yeah.
this is like historic. It's like lens so many of the things that I shot, you know? So I love that lens. Yeah, I would say those things. Oh, also the tilt shifts are really fun.
They are fun.
The tilt shifts are really cool. Yeah. So I like those too when it's like the right project to
Yeah.
use something like that. Yeah.
You should try out our new macro, our RF 100 macro. Have you tried that one?
No.
We'll have
Yeah.
to show you it.
Yeah.
Sorry, now you're gonna have to.
No, I have to look at a bunch of new things.
Yeah.
I also really like the K35s. I use the K35s a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love like creamy soft.
Right.
That's like my vibe.
Yeah.
Creamy soft, like pastel-y, like low contrast thingies
Right.
are things that I like.
It's just
And then
sets
when I
that
go
mood,
dark,
right?
I just want it to be really dark.
Yeah.
Like I want my blacks to be black. You know, I feel like I don't like the in between. I like the extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you're trying to stand out in that sense, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because it's like
Yeah.
if you look like everybody else, then it's just
then
like
what's the point?
you look like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, what's the advice that you would give to your younger self
Yeah.
and to even those that are just starting out?
Totally. I think, you know, when I think about who I was at NYU,
Yeah.
not like when I was going in, because I think when I was going in, I was just like very excited. But when I finally was like there for a little bit and I was like, oh, is this like, I felt a little discouraged for myself because I just didn't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like there's enough representation of like POCs and women and queer people as creative technicians, as especially as DPs and directors. And that's also why I'm like excited to do these things, because I feel like just being myself has allowed other people to see like, oh, it's possible. And I think like if I had seen myself as a guest speaker in my classroom, I would have become a DP way earlier in life. And not that I didn't, because I still made myself do it at a certain point, but like you kind of just have to believe that if you stay like good and true to who you are, you stay genuine, and you really want to help the people around you, good things will come. Like I think you just have to believe that like if you put in the work, it'll come back, you know. And all my career and with every job I've done, it's always just been like, oh, I just want to help this person. And that's honestly the truth of why I do anything, is like, oh, I want to help this person make this thing. And then that leads to like more established people that have made amazing things. And then now they want me to be part of their team. And I want the thing that we make to be the best thing that we make together, you know? And like kindness goes a long way. Just like saying thank you, being honest, you know, all these things that just, you don't want to hold anything at the end of the day. I want to be able to like know that I tried my best that day and I was kind to the people that supported me and know that like filmmaking is a team sport.
Yeah.
Like you really can't do it alone. And I think if and when you need help, you have to say that. And I think a lot of people hold a lot of pride with like not asking for help. And that only hurts yourself, you know, and the more minds you can get to solve a problem, the faster you'll solve that problem. So I think it's really believing in yourself and not like comparing yourself to others too much. We're all going to do that, but like it's irrelevant. Like what they did, they already did. You can't go back and do the thing they did, you know? So like, what can you do that is yours, you know? And you're like, oh, that person has a career that I admire. Well, look at how they got there. Like what little steps did they take every day to get to a bigger place? 'Cause I definitely, you know, the first time I shot something, I didn't think I would shoot Poker Face. You know what I mean? Like that's not, you don't shoot one thing and then suddenly do this huge. I mean, some people do, but like realistically, that's not how it happens. So
For
like
most of us, we got to put in the work.
Yeah, you got to put in the work. And like with every job, it's like, what are you going to learn from this? You know, how can this job help you elevate yourself? Not just like in a technical way, not in an artistic way, like, but like holistically, like what is this job doing for you? And why are you doing this job? You know, are you doing it for the money? Are you doing it for this? Or are you doing it for that? And knowing why you're doing something also makes things very clear. Like if this is a money job, then don't hold like, and creatively, if it doesn't align with what you're doing, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make this money, you know. Then this other job where they're paying you nothing, but it's creatively stimulating, you're doing it for the creative intention. So like also being clear about that as you go through the industry of like, what is my purpose here? You know, and trying to find something that will keep you motivated and engaged, and finding like-minded people that will also foster creative safe space on set, you know? And continuously asking people around you like, oh, what are you interested in? Or like, what do you want to do later? Or like, you know, because like I feel like none of us are truly where we want to be ever. We're always striving for something else. And keeping that in mind as you work with crew. Like, what do you want to do in 5 years, you know? Yeah. And like also figure out how you can help someone get there, because all those people helped me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would never imagine that I'd be doing what I do now.
Sure.
You know, so.
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like,
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Like, it's actually insane.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like being here too, like doing this, like I bought a Canon so that I could shoot. And now I'm like talking about, like, I'm here in Canon.
Yeah.
Like I'm inside the mothership. You know what I mean? Like couldn't imagine that ever.
Right.
And like these opportunities, I didn't think these existed.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't exist. And like time, like, you know, things change. And like, I think Canon clearly values community. And that's what I value too.
Right.
Community, and how can we all grow together and use tools to tell important stories about each other.
Right.
Like that's why this is so important to me.
Right. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You know?
Exactly.
And in line with that, to wrap things up, because I mean, this has been a great conversation. I
So
really don't
great.
want it to end, but what's next for you, and where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go to my website, christineing.com. That's ngnovels.com. Or you can follow me on Instagram, which is christinekng.com. K is my middle name, Capo. So you can find me there. And in terms of what I'm working on next, I mean, you know, Poker Face was a hit. Thanks for watching. So we're going to do more of that this year. So that'll probably come out at some point next year. I'm working on another few docs. I'm working on like a dance piece in 2 weeks that I'm excited about with my friend Celia, who's going to direct it. So I'm just excited to like do things that I haven't done, you know, and like, what else can I do to really break the mold? You know, I don't like doing things to like, that's just like been done. I just want to like think of like different ways to do something, because like it just gets boring for me. And I think that's also why I work in so many genres. You know, like I feel like, okay, I've done a TV show with 100 people, 200 crew. I want to go do a documentary where it's just me and the director,
Yeah.
you know, and like those things matter to me, like the different levels of production.
Keeps it fresh for you.
Exactly. Keeps it sharp, you know?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing all the great things that you're going to be doing.
Thank you.
And, yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for all the questions.
Yeah, thanks.
You did great.
You did great.
You did great.
What are you talking about?
You guys did great.
Tony did great.
Tony did great.